What's up, War Report family? It's your boy C Dub. Everyone has opinions about Auburn football going into the summer and fall, but what are Hugh Freeze's thoughts? We will discuss that and more in today's edition of The Weekend Tailgate.
This is The Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C Dub. I Joe. Be Will. My G. You are now listening to.
Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm joined by Mike G, Dustin of the Uptempo Pod. Welcome to the Weekend Tailgate, courtesy of show sponsor Golden's Cast Iron. We want to send a special shout out and thanks to them for being a sponsor of the War Report and helping us to bring you great content. So, guys, do the necessary and support them. How you can do that? Head over to goldenscastiron.com/WR, where you can get 15% off of weights with the code Get Your Weight Up, or $65 off Fire Pits of Kamado Grills using code TWR. Special thanks to them for supporting the War Report. And I want to thank you guys in advance for sharing this video, smashing that like button, and subscribing, especially if you have just found our channel. Even if you've been around and you've been lurking, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, you can hit the join button and become part of the Green Name Gang. Mike G can fill you in on how to do that and what you can expect as part of your perks.
Yeah, Caesar, you guys already know the deal. Become a patron. My thing went away, Caesar. Pull up that graphic.
Okay.
Become a patron of the War Report, guys. Look, $5.99 a month will definitely get you there. We got a lot of great things going at the War Report, so we want you guys to join the conversation. If you've seen the recent interviews we've done, we'll be talking about our latest one here on today's show. You can help keep that work going by becoming a Patreon member. You can also give the gift of the War Report. You guys do this every single live stream. Give that gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. This is a great program that YouTube has started. We appreciate everybody who does this consistently. Also, this show is brought to you in part by show sponsor Manscaped. Right? Call them what you want. Knee knockers, golden nuggets, thigh slappers. But our friends at Manscaped refer to them as the boys. Not every man has children, but every man is responsible for their two boys below the waist. When your little guys have more hair than they need, trust Manscaped for all your grooming needs. Boys need love too. So join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com and use code RAPPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. You heard it here first. Boys are back in town.
And happy Cinco de Mayo as well. I did not mention that.
It is Cinco de Mayo.
It is Cinco de Mayo. I'm actually going to celebrate with burgers.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about meaningless holidays at 40.
Yikes. All right. Anyways, definitely want to appreciate you guys in the chat hanging out with us today. Wesley Hilson gifted 5 War Report memberships. God bless you, good sir. Good to have you here with us. Good guy Sanford here says, what are the odds Kendra drops another diss track before y'all do the drawing? Very likely we're not doing a drawing today, but yes, very likely.
Yeah, that Kendrick Drake thing is interesting.
That's a good way to put it. Speaking of interesting, Mike G, you released the latest Auburn mix in which you got an opportunity to sit down with Auburn's head football coach, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, that's it.
Guys, check out some of the recent ones. He's been doing work over there. He's basically have hit up the QB room. Peyton Thorne, Hank Brown, great content that Mike's been doing in the offseason. But you sat down with Hugh Freeze just recently. Kind of talk about your thoughts about that interview and just what's kind of the mindset that Hugh Freeze is in right now going into his second summer as Auburn's head coach.
Yeah, look, everybody did their Hugh Freeze interviews before A-Day. And, we're playing 4D chess over here at the War Report. So we did ours after A-Day to talk a little bit about, what happened. What happened during A-Day? What does it mean going into the spring? want to take first and foremost, thank you to Hugh Freeze for taking the time to sit down and do a meaningful interview with us. So many times those guys are running from thing to thing, and it's hard. It's hard to sit down with them and have their full attention for 30 minutes. It's very difficult. But he was fully engaged the entire time. And, what I sensed was a lot of optimism from him, Caesar. He feels like he's laid the foundation in year one to move this program forward. It's going to be a process. At the end of the interview, he asked the Auburn family for more time to continue to pull this thing the right direction, while saying, I want you guys to be optimistic, but I understand we have to give you something to be optimistic about. And as we go through the clips from this interview, I think fans will hear some of that optimism.
Well, let's get into it, and we encourage you guys to actually go on our page. Not now, enjoy the live, but once this live is over, check out the latest Auburn Mix with Hugh Freeze. This is actually kind of an advertisement of sorts for that latest episode that we released for you guys. But Mike G, you had sat down with Hugh Freeze, and one of the things that you wanted to discuss is scheme offensively.
Yeah.
This is Hugh Freeze's offense going into 2024. And you talked a lot about, you asked him about 12 personnel, which is something they begin to run heavy. And he acknowledged that. So let's talk about that, and we'll come back with a few comments and thoughts.
Last year, you guys ran toward the season. It seemed like you were leaning more 12 personnel. Yeah. Going into this year, you think maybe you see more 11 and 10 personnel?
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, that's more. I love 12 personnel, but I think there's a time for it for sure. But we were heavy into that, if not 13 some.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think you'll see more balanced in 11, 10, and 12.
So Hugh Freeze is hopeful that Auburn will be a lot more balanced this year as opposed to last year. Dustin, I want you to jump in here real quick. Mike, I know you got some thoughts based on that, but Dustin, your thoughts about what we should expect to see, or what you think will be a deciding factor to determine if Auburn is more balanced this year, or will we continue to see a lot of 12 personnel in 2024? What were your thoughts about Hugh Freeze's comments?
Well, what we ultimately end up seeing probably comes down to the performance of Peyton Thorne, right? Like if he's playing well, then we're going to see more packages where there's more receivers out there and they're throwing the ball. The reason why I had to go to 12 and 13 personnel sometimes was because the passing game was anemic and you didn't even get over 2,000 yards, and running the rock was the only way you could successfully move the sticks at all. So a lot of that falls right on Peyton Thorne. But in terms of just what the game plan is as far as personnel goes into next year, I think it's Hugh is slowly kind of getting the guys in there that match his system, right? So, the Cam Coleman's of the world, the Perry Thompsons, the Cam Brown seems like he made a nice jump this summer. Like Lambert Smith from Penn State, he went and got Robert Lewis. He went and got guys that have experience, or the guys that he recruited for the most part from the high school level of the Perry and Cam are these big outside threats. He feels like he's going to have the tools to run more of a Hugh Freeze offense. And a word that Hugh Freeze says all the time, if you notice since he's been at Auburn, he uses the word collaboration a lot. Last year, I feel like I've noticed it. When it comes to the collaboration last year, clearly it didn't work. Clearly he was bringing in a guy that he had never worked with before in Philip Montgomery. So he spoke. I played a clip on our show last Tuesday night. It was Hugh in about 3 or 4 weeks into the season last year, just talking about in a press conference how much he's struggling with giving over the offense. And he mentioned, I can't even come in here and edit terminology because we're too far down the road, right? There's nothing I could do at this point to fix some of the things that I think are going wrong. Starting fresh this year, went and got Derek Nix, a guy that he feels like, okay, promoted Ken Austin up from off the field to an on-the-field position role, right? He feels like, all right, I've got my crew in here that we're all going to collab together and it can work. And then on top of that, I went out and got a stud like Cam Coleman, a stud like Perry Thompson, a proven guy like, Lambert Smith to put on the outside and then kind of win those one-on-one matchups of the RPO, because that's the thing, we can talk about pass attempts versus run attempts and all that kind of stuff. Well, if under Hugh's true system, not what Philip did last, that kind of is determined by the defense, right? It's run, pass, option. But you got to have the things out there on the outside where you can win those matchups one-on-one. And I'll close out with this. I think that if you look at you give me Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman, and Lambert Smith versus Jair Shorter, Nick Marner, and Shane Hooks, I'm going to take the first group. And I think that this season is going to bear that out statistically. So I just think that he feels more comfortable. He's been through a spring practice now. He saw Cam Coleman do what he did at A-Day. He feels like, okay, man, I got some guys out there that we can throw it up and they'll go get the damn ball.
Mike G, your thoughts? Because I'm gonna soft pitch this one, softball underhand this one to you. During spring, Auburn was in a bit of a wide receiver conundrum, right? If guys weren't on campus just yet, they were either injured, and so Auburn didn't have an opportunity to really display any of what Hugh Freeze was hopeful we would see in the fall. What do you think has to change between now and the fall to begin to see some of that balance?
Nothing. I don't think they have a choice. They've got it. They've just got to do it. You don't not throwing the ball to these guys is not an option. It's just not. Yeah, they've got to try. They're going to have to force the ball a little bit more, and they're going to have to put more faith in Peyton Thorne to do that. And I think that the thing that he's been saying out loud has been, if you upgrade the weapons around Peyton, I think you'll see a better Peyton based on his history at the position. He had Michigan State, he had Keon Coleman and the other kid, and now they've added Cam Coleman. It may be difficult to ask a freshman to carry that load, but when you're a top 5 prospect overall, that's part of the weight that comes with being rated that highly. You're expected to come in and produce immediately. I think fans should have some grace for Cam Coleman based on how this goes next year. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, Auburn ran a ton of 12 personnel over the last 4 or 5 games of last season. They took the air out of the football, and he said during this interview, Peyton Thorne's pass attempts were the lowest of his career for starting quarterbacks. Now, why do we think that is? That's not that Peyton just didn't decide to throw it. But, dude, they took the air out of the football, man. It was a 61-39% run-to-pass ratio last year. That's insanely lopsided in today's college football, and they've got to put the air back into football. So what has to change? What has to change is they just have to throw the ball more, period. And they don't have a choice to not, right? Like you made promises to these kids that came in, and they're believing based on what happened last year, what you told them, the reason we didn't throw the football was because we didn't have you. Well, now you have me, so I expect you to do it, period. That's it, right? Like if you're Cam Coleman, you're not sticking around for another year if they don't put the air back into the football. You're going to sit here and you're going to wait, and somebody's going to give you anything you want to go to another program after this season.
Well, I get that. I get that, Mike. I mean, obviously, Cam Coleman is going to be on the outside, right? KLS will be on the outside. Perry Thompson will be on the outside. But if you're going to 10 personnel, who are the other guys catching the ball?
Okay, so Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith, and then who's at the slot? I think Robert Lewis, he played on the outside this spring, but I think you move him to the slot. Okay. You're crowded outside with Cam Brown and Perry Thompson coming in the summer. I think they're going to find ways to get Perry Thompson the ball. Like, if you put Robert Lewis on the outside, it kind of forces him further down that list. So I think you have that. And then, I think it's pretty clear at this point that they like Sam Jackson's chemistry, right? So if you're in 10 personnel, which we'll see if they do that, as much as he would like to do it, then he is the fourth receiver on the field. If you're in 11 personnel where you only have one slot, I think he is the next option behind Robert Lewis.
I think that's ideal. Because you still have your tight ends that you want to have on the field to feed the ball to, right?
Right. So Valdo Fairweather stays on the field.
Valdo stays on the field. So I could see us more so in an 11, even if you do 4 wideout splits. I mean, you still got Valdo out there in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I mean, he was clearly the only tight end they were willing to throw the ball to last year. Right, your second leading tight end was Brendan Fraser, and he had 7 receptions for 73 yards on the season. So they don't want to throw the ball to the other guys. and you return to nearly that whole room except for Fromm. I think Fromm dipped out of here. So, to me, it's you need to have guys on the field that you're willing to force the ball to, or that you feel like can make plays for you. Outside of Fairweather, that's not it, right? And then you brought in new guys at the slot. So I think that based on, he seems to trust the guys he brings in first a lot more than the guys that existed here. So these new guys that come in, I think he's going to throw the ball to them. I think he's going to throw the ball to them. They'll get opportunities to show what they can do.
Yeah, I think there's a reason for what Mike just said, and that's because look at the recruiting rankings before Hugh Freeze took over, and look where they're at now. That's because the guys that he's bringing in for the most part are better, and he knows that.
Guys,
yeah, I would argue, Justin. Yeah, from high school, they're good. Nobody's saying the guys from high school aren't good, but man, they missed a lot in the portal last year. And I'm not sure if I totally trust their portal evaluation. I think there's a differentiation between the two. So we'll see how the portal guys do, certainly. Yeah. But I would not for certain say the guys they're bringing in from the portal are better. I think they hope they're better.
I agree with you on that, but I was talking about high school. I should have been more specific. I view the portal as like a Band-Aid, and then, like, for example, you look at what we did on the defensive line. Like, you had to do that, right? You didn't have any other option, or you're going to literally be counting on guys like TJ Lindsey and Malik Blockton to play significant reps as 18-year-olds in the SEC on the D-line. You don't want to do that, so you had to go get a Trill Carter. You had to go get a Blitty. I don't think those guys, like, in 3 years, TJ Lindsey and Malik Blockton will be better football players than those guys. I just think that, like, Hugh's it looks like this time around he's using the portal more so as a Band-Aid. I got to patch some holes here. I got to patch some holes there. I do think, though, Mike, and I agree with you, but I think at the wide receiver position, I do like what he brought in, and Robert Lewis and KLS. I do think he did upgrade at that position using the portal.
I agree with that, Dustin. I think he had better success this year than opposed to last year. We still can really tell what Martner was leaving spring last year.
Listen, if you're not going to be precise at quarterback, then he had to go out and get pass catchers with radius. And you could say what you want about the pass game, but look, man, there was a reason they took the air out of the football, and it primarily had to do with the quarterback. Right? If he was dropping dimes in the pass game, those receivers, all of them would have looked at least a little better last year. Like, again, there's a belief, and they keep saying this part out loud, that if, there's a reason he keeps talking about catch radius. They want guys that can go up and catch 50-50 or what they're now calling 80-20 balls. You want a guy. The issue is that those guys aren't in abundance. They're rare. 80-20 guys are rare. There are not a ton of them in college football. If there were, right, you'd see crazy numbers from every starting quarterback in the SEC, right? So finding those guys, like Cam Coleman is absolutely an 80-20 guy. Now, like, how much will it bear out this year? I don't, like I said, he's still a freshman. So I cautioning fans from putting too much weight on Cam Coleman's shoulders this year. As talented as he is, give him time to develop and make some mistakes. And not be perfect this year and not come in and be expected to save Auburn's passing game in year one. This is a multi-step process, and Hugh Freeze is telling people that. Look, give me time. Every time you ask him, he says, give me 2 more recruiting classes. He said that to me twice straight to my face. Hey, when are we going to be celebrating your SEC championship? Give me 2 more recruiting classes. And to Dustin's point, right, he does see the portal as a Band-Aid. He absolutely sees the portal as a Band-Aid because he's saying that part out too. He said, that's not the way to do this. I think we need to build this thing from high school. That takes time. And, while these guys may be an upgrade over the long term, you got to have guys that fit your system. Gus was like that. Every coach has been like that. So, for me, a lot of the change in the talent is more about finding guys who fit what you're trying to do offensively, and and hopefully for the guys like Jay who left, they fit into programs that are more custom to their what they do well.
I think ideally, and I'm gonna put a bow on this, ideally I think the goal for Hugh Freeze is to try to get to 11 personnel. I still think we see a lot of 12 personnel at different points because obviously you want to run the ball and be effective with the guys we got in that running back room. So I expect to see a good bit of 12, but I hope we can actually be efficient running 11 personnel because you still got Valdo out there. Hopefully you got a slot guy, and the passing game takes a step forward. Yep. Speaking of the offense, you asked Hugh Freeze about play calling. Given the staff assembled, here was his thoughts. Let's talk. Let's check it out, and we'll come back with our thoughts.
Is Hugh Freeze the play caller back this season full time?
Well, I've hired Derek Nix, who was with me for 5 years,
right?
And he and Kent and myself will collaborate on the game plan. I don't know exactly
who's holding the call sheet.
We're all going to have the call
sheet
for sure. Right. You know, I think any head coach has the right to step in and make calls.
Coach Nix had a weird clause in his contract that said if he left for a job and he wasn't the primary play caller, he owed a buyout or something.
Well, he is the primary play caller.
There you go. All right.
There you go.
We got it on record.
You got it on record.
Yeah.
So, but at any point, you know, we're going to say, hey, Kent, what do you think? Hey, you know, Marcus, what do you think? Jake, what do you want to run? So I think the play calling stuff, particularly with a staff that's been together like we have, is, you know, it varies from game to game as to exactly what that looks like, because everybody's going to have ideas now that we're back in the system that I'm really familiar with.
Dustin, jump in there. Obviously, Hugh Freeze, it was believed Hugh Freeze would be taking over in year 2, but it sounds to me as though because he has a better working relationship with Nix, they have history together, he's going to be the primary play caller for the most part. But what did you hear in that?
What if Bruce Pearl came out next year and said, you know what, I'm doing hands off on our defense this year? You would go, well, hey, hold on, buddy, hold on. Your success as a coach has been built off of the defenses you draw up on the court. I didn't like it, man. You can go back and listen to our episodes from a year ago. I hated it. Now, I knew why he made the decision with Philip Montgomery. I understand it. You come into a situation at Auburn, you know, you look at the roster and you go, oh, my goodness, what happened here? Well, a potato famine happened. There's nothing to eat. And he said, okay, well, I got to go out and I got to make something happen. I got to go get some pieces. So he probably got overwhelmed. That's my theory. He got overwhelmed. He made a bad decision in putting Philip Montgomery in charge. And then I'm telling you, he pretty quickly, if you go back and listen to the pressers in the middle of the year last year, you could tell he was already over not being in charge, but he kept referencing terminology. He's like, I can't hop in and take over right now. The terminology is too different. Shouldn't be an issue with everybody lined up right now. And look, we brought you here to do this, bro. Like, you're here to be Hugh Freeze. You have been successful calling offenses and calling plays everywhere you've been. And then you come to Auburn and you decide to switch it up. And I was thinking about this last night when I was watching this interview, Mike.
Okay.
Since Gus Malzahn's been fired, what the hell has Auburn tried to – what has been our identity on offense? When we show up to the game, what are we trying to accomplish when we have the football? For 3 years now, you can't tell me. For the last 2, we've switched quarterbacks the middle of drives the whole damn year. I mean, man, don't even get me started on the Ole Miss game. 3rd and 2, you've already made this mistake earlier in the season, and you make it again, and you get a false start, and now we're at 3rd and 7 again 3 weeks after you did it. I really hope, because you mentioned the collaboration and that same answering that same question there, Mike, where he talked about having Derek Nixon here. I got familiar with my terminology. It's hard, man. It's really hard to stay at an SEC school and be successful. If you're going to go down doing you, Hugh. Go down doing you. Don't go down doing Philip Montgomery, or don't go down letting somebody else. Look, whatever you got to say for the contract situation, you know, lie your ass off. You do whatever you got to do. Cap, whatever you got to do. Hugh Freeze needs to be on calling the plays this year. And this was my whole thing with the Philip Montgomery stuff. Was like, I understand the terminology. I understand we're too far down the road and it's a bad situation. But you are the head coach. So in 3rd and 2, when it comes over your headset that we're switching quarterbacks, I don't care who the OC is, bro. Foot down. We're not doing that because it's 3rd and 2. And we've already tried that all year, and it leads to us not getting the playoff in time and/or an offensive lineman moves early, and now we're in 3rd and long, which was obviously a disaster for our offense. So, like, step 1 for Auburn's offense this year, step 1, and I know this sounds crazy, but this is where we're at as a program. Show up on Saturday and stick by your guns on offense and have a plan. I'm okay losing games if I can go, well, I know what the hell we were trying to do. But the last 3 years, I don't know what we're trying to do. I have no idea what last year was, and I have no idea if Brian Harsin even knows what football really is. So, just as a fan base, man, like, I get all the angst when it comes to the offense and the scoring of points and everyone looking at PT and going, what in the world? And Mike, this is why I think Hugh took the time at the very end of the interview to say, hey, guys, hey, I need some patience here. Because I think that he knows last year he made some mistakes. And a big mistake was turning over his offense that you've been running and you've been successful for. Hugh Freeze, you're one of the best offensive minds in the game, in my opinion. Top 10, top 15, I don't care how you want to draw it up. You're one of the best. Do your offense. You do your offense. Derek Nix, Ken Austin, they listen to you. You're the boss. You run the show. Mike says it all the time. You got to chew gum and walk at the same time. Kirby Smart coaches his team and still lands top recruiting classes. It's time to go, man. I want us to have an identity on offense and know what we're trying to do. Let's just have a foundation. Is that too much to ask for on the Plains?
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So, love that energy from Dustin, by the way.
Same.
That's what I'm about on Sunday afternoon. I didn't love this answer. This was the only part of the interview that made me raise an eyebrow. And I think what will actually happen is, because if you listen, I tried to press him, like, who's holding the call sheet? And he kind of went to we're all going to have a say. And I think what he's trying to say is everybody will have a say in the game plan, but on game day, I think Hugh Freeze is holding the call sheet. He said in his introductory press conference, or in one of the first press conferences he did, he cut his cloth in this industry as a play caller. And I'm with Dustin. I think that you have to go back to that, because now, like, this has to look like a Hugh Freeze offense. And I'm going to expound on a lot of things that Dustin just said. What is your identity on offense? Well, under Hugh Freeze, it should look like 55% run, 45% pass, and it should look like at least 400 pass attempts a season for your quarterback. That's drastically different than what Auburn fans have been used to for a very, very long time. And it should be somewhere upwards of 3,000 to 3,500 yards passing a season, which also would be prolific numbers here. This would take Auburn into uncharted territory statistically and historically. Only 3,000 yard passers, Dustin, in the whole history of the program, single season.
Yeah.
So it's tough, man. You're looking, as a fan, you're looking for something that you've never seen here before from this coach, and that is consistency in the pass game. So how do you get there? Well, you recruit better, pass catchers, better receivers, right? Mission accomplished. Now you got to find a quarterback who can deliver the ball at least an average level to your pass catchers, and then you have to call a game, which is what we're talking about here. Who's holding the call sheet, right? That allows for both sides of that to flourish. Now, I know Philip Montgomery got scapegoated for a lot of what happened last year, but you still hired him.
Yep.
That's your responsibility as the head coach. You brought him in and decided to do that. And I mean, of all Dustin said that I felt most is you done one thing your whole career, and then you get here and then switch it up. I mean, that set Auburn back a year in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Because you brought in the recruiting, but in terms of moving one step closer to what you were trying to do, personally, I think it did a disservice to the kids that you inherited.
Sure.
They played in a crap system in year one. It was a mess. And I can't repeat it, but I do believe it will be better this year based on the feedback that Peyton Thorne gave me after our interview about how it went last year. Hugh kind of alluded to it in this. He said he hadn't talked to Peyton about it, but I was putting the pieces together in my head from what Peyton said or what he said. He said, I feel like Peyton feels there's more alignment between us as coaches, like we've done this together before. Yeah. So he's more confident in what we're going to do than he was last year. Peyton said, what he said. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I feel that. Like, I'm telling you, after talking to Peyton Thorne, I told you, Caesar, I was like, you were a little too hard on you last year, bro. I apologize. Here's some cake. Vintage guy, bring out the cake for Peyton. He deserves it after what he went through last year. So, yeah, they've got to do better for these kids in terms of the system, and that starts with play calling, right? You've upgraded the talent. You've got to have a plan for the red zone and third down in places where Auburn was historically bad last year. Statistically, you may hate Brian Harsin. Statistically, this offense went backwards last year.
Facts.
Statistically, they went backwards last year, and I don't think that's about talent. I think that is about the plan that they had for the talent that they had. And it takes time to build a winner. It does. So I wasn't expecting 10 wins last year, but I wasn't expecting 6 and 7 either.
Right.
And a G5 loss, and you know what I mean, a blown 4th and 31 versus Alabama at home. Like, there were just some things there that were like, you were this with the talent you had, you were this close to 8 or 9 wins.
Right.
And the difference between winning 6 and winning 8 or 9, it wasn't talent, guys. It was coaching. You didn't lose to New Mexico State because of talent. You lost because of coaching, right? You lost to Alabama because of coaching.
You lost the bowl game
because of coaching. Yeah. Maryland wasn't a better team than Auburn.
Right.
Right. So there's your 3 wins right there. There's your 9 wins right there. If they had a better plan offensively. And then in the bowl game presser, he says, I was busy recruiting. And I'm like, as media, I'm like, eating that up. As a fan and alum, Caesar, Dustin, I'm like, no, don't say that, motherfucker. Right? So keep that to yourself. Keep that part to yourself. So when we get a chance to sit down and have these conversations with him, it's interesting because he does a good job of answering our questions. I love this about Hugh Freeze, without giving away too much, but saying enough that we've had enough conversations with players to be able to put the pieces to the puzzle together and say, okay, we know what he's saying here. Right. So I'll end on this. When you hear us here at the War Report or at the Up Tempo and we start beating a certain drum, can't always come out and say, well, this is what they told us. But you should know that we're not pulling those takes out of our butt. Like, that's coming from somewhere very, very genuine. Yeah. And I'll leave it there. So, yes, I agree with a lot of what Dustin said, man. This is the accountability I think that is okay to put on Hugh Freeze. Right? And it doesn't have to show up in record, Caesar, but you just have to see signs that it's moving the right direction year over year.
I just hope that YouTube doesn't hold us accountable by Mike's language and
I try to hit him with the Birmingham mumble there.
Birmingham mumble.
Yeah.
Just hope YouTube don't pick that one up. But no, I think that great points, guys. Great points. I think to your point, Dustin, I don't expect to see QB switching this year. I think moving forward, the coaches will move forward with one guy, a guy. Hopefully Peyton Thorne is that guy and that he actually takes a step forward. And I think these guys having worked together, I'm hoping for a better product, a better game plan. And I don't want to hear us saying in year 2, what plan was that? What's the plan? What's going, like, if we're saying that year 2 is a disaster, it's a disaster.
Just try to do it. I think that if they just try to do what they normally do, you're going to see better numbers. I'm cautioning fans, look, 7-5 may be on the way. The difference between me and a lot of other people is I'm okay with that as long as it looks better on the field, right? You know. And when I say that, people think, "Oh, you don't think Auburn, you hate Hugh Freeze," and all. I was like, "No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I think you can move this thing forward. It may not end up in more wins in year 2, but it can certainly look a lot cleaner and give you hope for the future that this thing is headed the right direction. You didn't get that last year. You got 6 and 7, and you got a lot of question marks. I think you can get 7 and 5 and still have a lot of. You've solved a lot of things where it's like, you know that 7 and 5 season, we're headed into the next season. They were like, yo, they're close. And then all of a sudden the preseason rankings start to reflect the hope that you showed in year 2 for year 3. And you're bordering on, if not a top 20 team.
Right.
Didn't we, after Chiswick's first year in 2009, now I didn't expect a natty the next year, but didn't you all feel like the program was headed in the right direction?
Yeah.
8-5, didn't light the world on fire. Chris Todd came out and threw what I think was 22 tutties to 6 picks. He didn't set the world on fire, but you would take that numbers from Peyton Thorne in a heartbeat this year.
The last two, but again, it's how you end your season, guys, right? Because again, Harsin started out the year, his first year, like 6-2, like, okay, he may be, but we lost. We went up. We ended the season on a 4-game losing streak. In Chiswick's first year, we took Bama down to the wire, won our bowl game, and there was your optimism, right? Because they were also recruiting well as well.
Yeah, Justin, I would argue that Chris Todd did light the world on fire for Auburn. He set Auburn's record for touchdown passes that year. Yeah. He broke the touchdown pass record that single season that year. So we saw he still did something that we've not seen here at Auburn, which left you with the feeling that these guys, if they could take Chris Todd and he can break touchdown records at Auburn, they know what they're doing offensively and there's hope for the future. And then they got Cam Newton and won a national title. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like I said, to your point, what was that, an 8-5 season?
8-5 year.
8-5 year, man. And it was clear that, like, man, they might be cooking something. Like, Gus has got something going here.
And then we brought in Superman, and the rest was history.
Yeah, man. You were one player away from a national title run because the system did not.
Two if you count fairly.
Yeah. I'm saying offensively. Offensively, you were one player away. Right, because here's the deal. Fairley was great, but that team gave up more points than any national champion in the history of college football.
He was a bright spot of that defense.
Yeah, so winning that was 100% about outscoring people the way that they were, and that was Cam, right? Sure. But they had a system that maximized his talents and got the most out of him, and they needed every bit of it because you were down 24-0. On the road in Tuscaloosa, the last time Auburn went into Tuscaloosa and got a win, and it was the greatest comeback in the history of college football.
Yeah, easy to pull those comebacks off, guys. When you have an identity on offense, you know what you're going to do. You're down 24-0, but hey, I got a plan. I'm not scrambling. We know what works. Let's stick to it, and let's stick to our guns. And then you ultimately, you lead to the comeback. If you're scrambling and changing quarterbacks every drive, you see what it is. You're going to go 6-7.
Yeah, for sure. All right, gentlemen, let's get to the break. You're watching The Weekend Tailgate. Please be sure to share this video, like, and subscribe. Let's pay some bills and come back and talk about a few more clips. Hugh Freeze.
This edition of The War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Guys, you know the deal. Hit that join button, become a member of the War Report. We got a lot of great stuff going. If you enjoyed the Hugh Freeze interview, we can keep that work going by having 10,000 of you sign up. We got 12,000 subscribers. 10,000 of you sign up for Patreon memberships. My dog can get braces, so help her out and sign up for that gift, that membership. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. This is a great program. You can help us get this number this way as well too. To anybody who hasn't made the decision to become a member, hit that gifted membership button, and YouTube will choose somebody who interacts with our channel at a high level but hasn't made the decision to join up yet. Check us out on the podcast network. Today we have Dustin from the Uptempo podcast, but we got lots of great content on the War Report podcast network, Auburn Express, College Loop, and Just a Sec, as well as the Uptempo, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. Again, want to shout out show sponsor Golden's Cast Iron. Guys, it is summer's coming, and you need to go to goldenscastiron.com and get your weights so you can get your weight up. With code Get Your Weight Up, 15% off. And you can grill out and chill out with code TWR for your fire pits and Kamado grills. They're making great lifetime products over there. We love Golden's Cast Iron. They sponsor almost every single interview we do. They're fantastic. So if you don't sign up for a Patreon membership, you can support us by going to goldenscastiron.com/WR and buying something from them. Father's Day is coming in about a month. right? And I got my dad a grill for Father's Day last year. You should get your dad a grill for Father's Day. If we can get 3 people to buy their dad grills for Father's Day, that would be great. So goldenscastiron.com. Last but certainly not least, Bet US 24-hour issued payouts, 125% sign-up bonus, and 24-hour customer service. It's baseball season. Dustin, there's nothing I love more than a good baseball parlay, and you can do that at Bet US. My favorite thing to do. I don't bet often, but when I do, I'm on Bet US, hooking up those baseball parlays. So Bet US, they're great partners of the War Report as well, sponsor us through the offseason. Dustin, I have a sad parlay story I want to share with you.
Don't tell me you bet on the Auburn baseball team.
No. I was just getting into it, I put together this 9-leg parlay for basketball. It was amazing. It was all on the Golden State Warriors game, and they had given me FanDuel had given me like $300. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take this 300 like bet money and put it all down on this one thing. The payout was $22,000. Every leg of this parlay hit, but Draymond Green over 7.5 points. And he scored 6 points and then fouled out in the fourth quarter like a jerk. And ever since then, I've been a Draymond Green hater. Like, if I could send him an email right now, I would send him this bet slip and I would be like, you did this. $22,000, almost $22,000. I would have wanted. Yeah. And he was just playing like a jerk. He was clearly like frustrated, and so I was like, if he hits 2 free throws, I win $20,000 on a free bet. This is going to be crazy. I was upset the rest of the night.
Yeah, you deserve to be. And as an Auburn fan, the free throw line has punished you too many times in your life, and I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. I appreciate your condolences. That means a lot to me, buddy.
Let me grab some of these supers and we'll get back into it, gentlemen. Hunter Hannah with the super chat. Appreciate you being with us. Interesting here. Keandre Lambert Smith over under 600 yards receiving, 50 receptions, 5.5 tutties.
This is interesting. You would think over, but for perspective, Auburn did not have a receiver with 50 targets, let alone receptions last year. Hear me out. No receiver had 50 targets, so they wouldn't have had a chance. But this is when we say this is why they have to pass the ball and there's not a choice, right? Like Dustin, wasn't he like a 700-yard receiver or close to 700?
He was close. 672.
This is right around what he had last year.
Yeah. I mean, in Auburn, Fairweather and Fair were like half this yardage total.
Yeah.
And, 10 less, actual, like, I think Jay Fair had maybe 45 targets on the year as the most targeted wide receiver. So you've got to try to throw the ball more if you want to see him. And at 600 yards, he's going to need like at least 80 targets on the season. Can he do it? Yes. If he stays healthy, him and Cam Coleman should get the bulk of the targets on the outside. I'm going to go over because it has to be. You can't go another year without having a 700-800 yard receiver and Hugh Freeze offense.
I'm going to go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to go under, but not by a lot. Because, I mean, what he had. So last year he had 673 yards with 53 receptions and 4 tutties. I think that it's going to be kind of spread out this year. I think that Cam Coleman is going to be around 700 to 800 yards, somewhere in there. I think Rivaldo is going to get obviously a fair amount. Kind of interested to see what happens with Caleb Burton. But then, I think that as Perry comes in there, I just think it's going to be spread around, and I don't think we quite get to 3,000. So, overall, or from PT anyway. So I'm gonna go under, but I'll go over 500, and I'll say he's right around 40ish receptions, and I'll say he matches his TD total last year with a 4 again.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under in terms of yards receiving. That's because if he is really going to be the number 2 receiver, that means the number 1 receiver will be over 600 yards. 7 to 8,
man.
Not necessarily, because
all Debbie Downers, man. We can have two 600-yard receivers.
Everything we're saying is an improvement over what we did last year.
Yeah,
so it's hard to be it's hard to be down over that. Like my thing is that
no,
Cam gets like 800.
Yeah,
I'm expecting him to get 800 somewhere in there. This guy is going to be hovering around 600, but not quite 600. So I'm gonna go under for him. I think Yeah, I'm gonna go under for him. I'm just gonna go under for KLS, but I think he does show as the second leading receiver for the squad.
Fair enough.
Well, C-Dub, if he does that, if those two guys do what you just mentioned, we're almost at the 1,700 or whatever that PT threw for last year, just with two wide receivers. So
hard to be down about that.
Give it to me. Give it to me.
And Valdo's eating. Other receivers are eating and coming along. So I do expect us to take a step forward. But I don't necessarily think that means Keandre goes over this. So anyway, Daniel Moultrie chatted. You said, Dustin, how about that AU softball sweep over Bama?
Hey man, shout out to the ladies. Rammer Jammer Yellow Hammer, go to hell, Alabama. Live by that. And yeah, man, they could have mailed it in, bro. Your coach before SEC play announces that he'll be stepping down, whatever however you want to characterize it at the end of the season. They could have mailed it in. I mean, I'll call a spade a spade. The baseball team mailed it in about a month ago, and just kind of quit giving it their best effort. And the ladies haven't done that, so shout out to them. And it will be interesting to see. I mean, I know they kind of made a push late in the season. Let's see if they can make it in the tournament. I know they're kind of like a bubble team is my understanding. But yeah, man, anytime Auburn beats Alabama is something. Good job. And that softball team over at Alabama, that program is in a way better spot than Auburn's softball program is currently. So this was a good accomplishment. I'm proud of them ladies. Well done.
Haley, appreciate you gifting 5 War Report memberships, followed by Nina, who also gifted 5 War Report memberships. Thanks to you too. Appreciate it. Let's get into it, guys. Let's begin to talk about a question that Mike G asked about building and forming relationships with the guys you've recruited. Check it out.
You recruited these great receivers, and you've got to find them time on the field. The transfer portal has created some challenges in re-recruiting your roster every year. Like, is there a worry as a head coach that if I don't get these guys time this year, they might leave on me in the offseason?
I think that is what you just said is so I've been sitting there this morning with personnel. I just finished with them, just trying to figure out the 85. Yeah. It's almost impossible for a coach to plan that anymore. And you have been around and heard me say all the time, I'm committed to trying to build this through genuine relationships with really good high school players. Yeah. And I think we can recruit top 10 classes every year here at Auburn. Yeah. And I think that's how you really stack and build a program. Now, here's the new challenge. That used to be the way you do it. Mm-hmm. Well, now we just signed the top class in 24, and I think we're going to sign another one in 25. And what happens at the end of that first year? Does those genuine relationships really win out? Yeah. Over the phone calls that they're going to get? I don't know the answer to that yet, Mike, and I sure hope so. At some point, young men are going to have to decide what's really, really important to them. Yeah. And is it being in a culture and an environment that I know I can be developed in, and I need to have some patience? Mm-hmm. And I know I'm being blessed, or does something else drive the decision?
All right. Mike, jump in here. Your thoughts about when Hugh Freeze said that. What were you thinking there?
Look, so NIL is here to stay, but this is one of the things that I think is really good about Hugh Freeze's approach to recruiting. He's not abandoning the relationship aspect of this and thinking, well, we'll just do what everybody else is doing and throw a bunch of money at these kids. He's actually counting on the fact that when other programs come knocking every offseason and trying to put feelers out there and looking at how Auburn's season going and seeing who they can, steal and pick from the Auburn tree of recruiting, because it's happening at every program, those relationships will come back to solidify your position with that player and keep them out of the portal. You may not think it, but I mean, guys, you saw Jay Fair committed to USC, and here's what all I'll say about it is that Lincoln Riley knew he wanted to go after him, and they made a pitch that was clearly effective because he committed there. Auburn wanted to keep Jay. But they didn't really get a chance. And so I would argue that the relationship was not strong enough for him to pass on what Lincoln Riley had to offer. So he went to USC. With the kids that Hugh Freeze is recruiting this year, you got to have that, man. Right? I understand why, for the existing kids that weren't recruited by Hugh, it might not be strong enough. But what you can't do is you can't ignore that part of it and expect to keep kids in the program. And Hugh understands this. So he's going out. I get top 5 players. This is why, why Cam Coleman ended up at Auburn? Because they fired the guy at Texas A&M that established that with Cam. And without that relationship, there was no chance he was going there. That's how important the relationship aspect of this is, because they still had a bag for him. But I would argue if you're top 20 to 30 prospect in all of college football, that bag is going to be about the same at all the schools that you're considering. So it still comes down to the relationship piece. I see fans on social media act like you could just throw money at a lot of these kids and that will be the decision. Or if they decide to go someplace else, they must have offered him more money. No, man, if you are him, if you're that good, the money piece is about even everywhere you're going to go. There are a couple schools like USC and Texas that are maybe a step above in terms of what they have to offer because of the markets that they're in. Think about it. USC is LA. It's not just about what they're collective. I mean, I think it's like a Texas kid, Dustin, with a Lamborghini sponsorship or something crazy, right? Like that you're not going to get, you're not going to get that in Auburn,
right?
There's no Lamborghini dealership in Auburn, but you've got a couple of schools who have that. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, even for the kids who left Auburn, the thing that I heard the most was that made their decision so hard was they loved Auburn. They loved the community. It killed a lot of them to leave behind what they had established personally here. In the pursuit of football, they just knew they had to do it. And if you're Hugh Freeze, you got to keep building on that to make that decision as hard as possible for kids. To say, hey, listen, you're not just leaving a school, you're leaving a family, you're leaving a support system, you're leaving a community that loves you and gets behind you, unless you're Aiden Holloway. Right? You are building something here. There's something here that you don't have other places. We feel so kind of way about Aiden.
He earned that.
Yeah, he did. So, that's where I'm at with this. I was fired up about this underrated part of the interview. The coach is still prioritizing relationships. And he said at the end of that, if we're not teaching kids that, if we're not teaching them that life is more than about these things, and if you work hard, you will earn these things. What are we doing? What are we teaching them? And I'm like, yes, that's the mentorship that I want out of my coaching staff. Help grow young men into solid contributors to society and into good men, because you know what? They don't always have that at home.
Right.
One single parent household, sometimes mom doing everything she can to make ends meet, and they're desperate for leadership. They're desperate for love. They got to get it at Auburn, guys. Come on, man. Like I was fired up about this part of the interview. I was like, wow, okay, this coach gets it. Teach these kids about life, man. It's hard out here. I was blessed to come from a 2-parent household where my parents, when I got sick, man, they literally came to my rescue. As a grown man, some of these kids don't have that.
Right.
They don't have that support system. They don't have that family back home. And they should get that at your program. And I think that will win out over a lot of the money that some of these other schools are offering.
In addition to that, Dustin, teaching them how to become men, but you also have to have a good product at Auburn. Talk about culture in terms of the ability to be able to produce and develop players and put a product on the field that those guys will want to remain a part of.
Yeah, this discussion probably happens more so amongst the Auburn fans than I would say it does a lot of other SEC fans, just because of the creed and all that kind of stuff, right? Like we're really, it takes a lot. I mean, you really got to go the Aiden Holloway route for the Auburn fans to kind of start jumping down your throat. it's a fine line, man. And the way that college football has developed these last couple of years with the portal and the NIL and all that. Josh Pate has done a good job these last couple of weeks of kind of illustrating this. It's made it a business. Like you get the benefits of the NIL packages and all that kind of stuff, but then there's the downside of it. To where if you're not part of the plans, they can call you into the office and cut you. And then you've got tampering and everything else, right? Mike, you speak on relationships, and you talk about how, well, Jay Fair always had that relationship with Lincoln Riley. So I'm thinking about Cam Coleman and saying, hey, it's a good thing we had a good relationship with Cam and we maintained that relationship. So when what happened at A&M happened, now you have that relationship to fall back on and say, okay, well, we're still right here. We still love you.
Yeah.
I look at a guy like KJ Bolden. Let's say it doesn't work out at Georgia. Maybe in a year or two, your relationship comes into play there. Where, hey, I almost picked you guys a couple times. I almost picked you guys. You always love me. We'll circle back. It's really tough just the way roster management is right now because I really am on both sides. And when you ask that question, Caesar, it's just hard because, like you said, you have to put a winning product on the field because make no mistake about it, this is professional now. It might not be the highest level of football, but the way it's ran and operated is like the pros. Right. And I think that I can speak for a lot of people in the comments section. I spent a lot of money to go up to Nashville and watch us get our ass kicked. So I don't care anymore about Auburn men. I want to win football games. So what is that going to take? That's what I want to do. Because I just sat in 30-degree weather in the nosebleeds and watch us get drilled. I was at the New Mexico State game too. Like these tickets cost money. It costs $40 to park. It costs a lot of money, man, to go to a game.
I'm sorry you went to those games, man.
I did catch the UMass. I did catch the UMass dub. Okay. So, and before Harsin, man, I had a really solid record at attending Auburn games. But but that's just, Auburn's in their worst 3-year stretch in over 100 years. So, like, obviously you're going to see a lot of L's if you go. But if you're Hugh Freeze at the end of the day, it's like he's done this a lot with quarterback, man. He's politicked a lot with his answers on quarterback. Like if you hear how he answers questions about like Holden or Hank Brown, I feel like a lot of his answers are him talking to them. Like, please don't leave. Because right, you've only got so many guys in that room, and if one leaves, you got to at least go find another arm, and that's not always the easiest thing to do. It's just I think college football coaches are scrambling right now to try to figure out the right balance of this, of getting the right guys in here, but we still got to win. I think that Hugh Freeze is onto it with the high school. That's the right way to do it, like I talked about earlier, and then using the portal as the Band-Aid. And let's look at some of the guys the young cats that contributed last year on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Keldrick Falk and Connor Lew. Highly rated guys, right? Connor Lew was the highest ranked center in that class. Keldrick Falk was a very high ranked edge. You go out and you win those recruiting battles, you get those blue chips, and when their numbers are called on as young cats, they're able to contribute. And then everything that I've heard, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, those are guys that off the field are doing their job right as well, right? We hear a lot about Keldrick stepping up in the defensive line room this year and kind of be a leader. So it's hard, man. And these college coaches, you'll never hear me complain about how much a college coach is making because I know what the job entails.
Yeah.
There's so many things for them to try to put their hands on, man. Yeah. But ultimately, if you're Hugh Freeze, I think these things kind of go hand in hand, Caesar. I know I'm kind of like all around your question here, but it's a great question. And there's so much that's like packaged into it. But I think that getting the right kids in leads to the wins. I don't like the way that the basketball season ended. Obviously, that was super disappointing. But look at the way the season went as a whole. Could you not tell that those kids like playing together? And then like thus the results were they won 25 plus games in the SEC tournament championship.
Well, they evaluated really well, Dustin.
You could see the chemistry, right?
Yeah.
And I know that basketball, you got 12 to 15 guys versus 85. He said in the interview, Mike, you got 115 when you consider the walk-ons and everything. It's a lot of heads, but I think those things go hand in hand, man. Get the right people in there, and you're gonna sometimes make a mistake when it comes to that. You can never be perfect, and then the wins will follow. But if you're Hugh Freeze, the way this thing works is ultimately, like I said, I ain't paying $300 to watch good men out there. If I was gonna do that, I'd go like Notre Dame. If I was all about that, I'd go be a Liberty fan or something.
I don't know. They had
right?
Tail, so I don't know.
I know. Hey, but listen, they're standard over there.
Baptist
You know, if you hear Notre Dame fans talk, they talk about we care just as much about our guys' GPA as we do on the field. I'm saying I don't care. If you got to fake that kid's test, you fake that kid's test. I need him. I need him on the field, bro. I need you on the field.
Don't clip this part, please.
Hey, listen,
I am not in charge of anything at Auburn. I do not run in.
All he's saying is that, like, look, ultimately it comes down to winning games. That was something we talked about in the interview as well, too, right? You got to win games. You have to win games. You have to win games. It's not like
I don't care about your grades.
My dog is wilding out right now. But like the you know, kind of building on what Dustin is saying here, it is not a cheap thing to go to a game live anymore, right? Like Bruce Pearl pleaded for fans to come out and support in the SEC tournament. Fans did. He was like, I know y'all got church on Sunday, but we're playing a championship game. And the commitment that it takes to be able to do that for some people, and I talked to fans after the SEC tournament championship game, and like people put their plans off to go out there and answer the coach's call. If you're going to do all that, you need the coach to put a product on the field that is in line with the ask, right? And I think that fans can stomach losing, some, as long as it looks like it's like, man, that team, we're proud of our team. They gave us everything they had, and it just didn't work out because sometimes the other team's better or the ball bounces the wrong way or whatever. But that's ultimately what it comes down to. So you start with the relationships and getting the kids in the program, so you at least have a shot. Right. This is what the Bamas, Georgias, and Ohio States have had over other schools for so long. At the end of the game, when all things are equal, they've got the talent that can take over the game. Right. They've got the talent that can get you out of a bad call. Right. They've got the receivers to get you out of a bad throw. Terrible throw. Great catch. We've seen that story over and over in college football. Quarterbacks being made better by their receivers, right? What was it? Ken Dorsey. Yeah, you guys remember Ken Dorsey?
Oh, yeah, Miami legend.
Yeah. Like, listen, man, he lost maybe 2 games as a starter in college, and he had and went to 2 straight national title games, and one of those losses was in that national title game versus Ohio State. He had Kellen Winslow Jr. and Santana Moss, and like he had dirty receivers. Those guys would go. If you threw it within 3 yards of them, they were catching it.
Kellen Winslow at tight end, they were nasty.
Yeah, like I think Ken Dorsey went undrafted.
or like that, or he was like seventh round.
Yeah. I mean, it was, he went to go play for the 49ers. I think he ultimately became a quarterback coach at the pro level, had the right mind, but he was not capable of that. And so, I'll end this on this because I know we got one more thing to get to. Like in the better programs, what you see everything come together. So when I see people, I did a monologue on the Mix about Cam versus Joe Burrow. And even though I think Cam had the better season because of what he had to carry, I don't like when people undervalue what Joe Burrow did because he had better pass catchers, right? And the idea that, well, anybody would be good with those guys catching the ball for him, false. There are 2 ways you could mess that up. Number one, those guys weren't bailing Joe Burrow out every play. He was dropping dimes to NFL receivers, which that equates to record-breaking numbers, right? If he's just kind of getting the ball there, they're bailing him out, he still looks good by the numbers, but he's not breaking records, right? Because those guys are falling down and there aren't as many yards after the catch, right? And then the last part of it, which is system, what Joe Brady put together, passing game coordinator, or whatever the hell his title was prolific for those guys. So you had the right play call with the right quarterback with the right receivers. And they scored more points than any team in the history of college football that season. They were unstoppable. Your QB wins the Heisman. Your receivers are first-round draft picks. And now those guys validated all that because they're at the next level, all three of them killing it.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow got his team to Super Bowl by year 2.
The Bengals.
Right. Jamar Chase was right there along with him. Justin Jefferson is a literal highlight reel. He's everybody's favorite fantasy player at wide receiver. Yes. Everybody got validated coming out of that thing because they had the right players in the right system with the right plan with the right coaches. Now, if you can get all those things right, you can be really, really good at this level. In this new SEC, it's going to take that to win it. Oklahoma and Texas are here, guys. And as much as I dislike Texas, you got another recruiting monster with the NIL backing in your SEC backyard that you have to recruit against. They've got impressive facilities and almost unlimited resources there. So if you're Hugh Freeze, you don't have the same resources that Texas has. So you have to build the relationships. You have to. You got to do something well that the other guys aren't focusing on. So I like his approach to this thing, man. I'm like, you got to do that if you want to win at this level. And people are going to be like, how the hell are they getting players? Well, because you guys think, and sometimes insultingly so, that you could just throw money at players and that's it. That's all they care about. And that may work on some kids for a year until they get to your school and they figure out, wait, I still want to play. Like football is still important.
Yeah,
the money looks good, man. Depending on your situation, if somebody says, here's $100K, that's life-changing money for the average person. $100K is enough to elevate the average family situation from poverty to at least, you know what I mean, to livable.
Right.
So they're making those decisions not only for themselves, but for their families. If you're a coach, I implore you, don't take advantage of that. Honor your commitment to these kids when you recruit them. And then just give them the opportunity based on that. But don't throw the money at them, park them on the bench, and then ruin their dreams. Yeah. I don't like that. I think Hugh Freeze understands that he's not going to be one of the coaches that does that.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely see for sure just how different Auburn looks in year 2 under Hugh Freeze. It looks like we're going to be throwing the ball a lot more than we did last year, which is good news for me. So we will definitely continue to cover this in the offseason. Mike G, tell the people what they need to be doing. Well, before we do, let's grab some of you guys' comments. Some of you guys have been commenting and whatnot. So let's get some of your comments. Daniel Moultrie says, has anyone heard anything official on Jamonte Waller? I don't think there's anything official that's been announced concerning him.
No. Is something supposed to be going on, or like is this just a general inquiry?
Rumors that he got arrested.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I missed that. So
I don't think anything official to his question. Nothing official has been announced concerning him.
Okay, yeah. No.
Ernest Vaughn says that the War Report, y'all going to be doing a fireside in the mix or just one or the other. So what are the plans this summer?
Yeah, look, we're going to be doing the firesides. Guys, the firesides are more for when we have multiple players, and the mix is more of a one-on-one kind of deal. Love the firesides. They take a lot of coordination, and they take a lot to produce, and it's hot. So being able to sit inside a restaurant and do that thing in, perfect 70-degree conditions is an advantage sometimes. And depending on how much time the players have, will rotate between the mix. And, like it takes a lot to get 3 players in the same place at the same time for like an hour and a half, 2 hours to shoot a fireside. So we're not done with the firesides. We're going to continue to do that.
James Barnett, appreciate you being with us. He says, fellas, remember before that other guy went to Bama, the term Freeze 5 was used. Did Hugh Freeze end up with the Freeze 5 anyways, referring to Keandre Lambert-Smith?
Yeah, I mean, look, Ryan Williams would have been a real good steal. And ideally, if you're looking at it, there was a lot of things, if I was trying to recruit Ryan Williams, that I could say to kind of back him out of like wanting to go to Auburn. But it was interesting. It was an interesting idea at the time. But you only have so much football. And if they had gotten Ryan Williams, guys, I don't know that they would have been able to get away with playing much 12 personnel at all. You get him to come to Auburn, you got to just get all those guys on the field and see how it goes, right? Like, because you're not, again, he's not a guy that you could come and park on the bench for a year.
Right.
Those guys, those top 20 guys, they want to play now, and they have to play now. That's why you bring them into your program. Maybe you get away with that at quarterback, right? Where like it's a fresh, because it's harder to be successful from day one as a quarterback at the Power 5 level. But at wide receiver, man, the skill positions, you got to get those guys on the field.
Ryan Williams and Cam Coleman are very different, and they're different from anybody that came out in this recent cycle at receiver. They're a step above everybody, man.
Yeah,
Ryan Williams is a different breed.
Corey Weber says, with the fact that Freeze has never had a running back drafted high, will that make running back recruiting more difficult?
Yeah, we went through this and we looked at his numbers. I think, man, like he had 1,000-yard back at Liberty, and it didn't happen often in his systems. But that doesn't mean Auburn is a different beast, though. And I think there's more of an opportunity to recruit high-level backs. And if you look at the more successful years, he's still running it more than he's passing it. So, we'll see. Hugh Freeze is all about the yards per play, man. He's just like, listen, man, if you can average 5 to 7 yards per play as a running back, you're going to get the ball and you'll eat in his systems. But the way it's panned out with the talent he's recruited at wide receiver, sometimes it's hard. If they have perfect balance, like I said, I think you can get a running back to come play in the system.
I could be wrong here, but I think what plays a big part of this is the effectiveness of the QB running in this offense, right? Because if you're running the ball, that takes away opportunities for the running back in many cases. It's an RPO type style offense. So the running back is an option in the offense per se. So his numbers will be down. But again, in this day and age, you have a lot of schools that have running back by committee. Those guys aren't getting – you get running backs who go over 1,000 yards, but man, I'm telling you, like those running backs want to have something left in the tank once they get to the league. So if you're able to have an effective offense that gives the running backs opportunities and he gets exposure, I think that's the best you can offer most running backs. And so I think that's the goal there if you're here, Freeze.
Yeah, recruit offensive linemen to where Tank Bigsby's not getting the handoff and he's getting tackled as soon as he gets the football. And then I don't think you're really going to have a problem. Auburn's always been able to recruit running backs at a high level, so I don't think it'll change under Hugh Freeze, even when the offense goes more towards the passing. But that is just build up an offensive line, man, and you won't have a problem. And we're recruiting dogs right now. We got some dogs committed in this current class on the O-line.
Agreed.
Mike G, tell the people how they can become a member, join the Green Name Game, and get some amazing perks.
Guys, one more time, hit that join membership button. $5.99 a month will get you there. If you like the Hugh Freeze interview and some of the other things we're doing, these memberships help us keep that work going. Also, you can hit that gifted membership button. Like 3 or 4 of you guys did this during this broadcast, so thank you for doing that. We love you for doing that. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast network, Uptempo, Auburn Express College Loop, and Just a Sec, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. Again, quick shout out to show sponsor Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/rapport and use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off Fire Pits and Kamado Grills. They're making great lifetime products there. And last but certainly not least, I want to shout out show sponsor Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com to get 20% off plus free shipping with code rapport. Every man knows how scary it is. It can get when going for a close shave below the waist. That's why you trust Manscaped. They've got the new Lawnmower 5.0. They've got a 3.0 and a 4.0 Pro, and now they have a 5.0 Ultra. These are all great products to help you with your grooming needs. Manscaped.com. Use code rapport for 20% off plus free shipping. Fellas, your ladies will thank you.
Dustin, when's the next up-tempo pod? How can people check you out?
Tonight at 6 p.m., man. Tonight at 6 p.m. We don't normally go live on Sundays. We're normally Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Is that Central or?
Yeah, Central, Auburn time. We always refer to it as Auburn time. But yeah, so Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock Thursday night, 7 o'clock. We just didn't do one this Thursday, so we're going to get in there tonight, 6 p.m. and kind of talk about some of these additions in the portal, and if we kind of give some grades, and if we think that Auburn's roster has improved since the clock struck 0 in Nashville.
All right. Well,
and the Walker Show, I see that comment in there. Just tell me who I'm supposed to be dissing, bro. And if these fellas you see on the screen here, somebody can give me a beat, I'll diss whoever you want me to diss.
Nice. Well, listen, part of the War Report, we got some guys who makes beats for you, so we can arrange that for you if you're really up for it. Dustin.
I don't know. Apparently, I got a diss track coming, so just let me know who you want me to get. Walker Show, we'll get them.
Diss track.
Oh wow, definitely will try to push that for you, I guess. Thanks for joining us, Dustin. Appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, guys, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Please be sure to share this video, smash that like button, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. You can find us on social media, guys. That is on X, IG, even Facebook at The War Report. You can find us on TikTok at TW Report. That's it for now, guys, but enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle. With him.